Hey guys, my name is Ryan.
And my name is Miska.
And welcome to Hit Scan. We have patch 1.11 out at the moment. It was delayed a full week pretty much at this point. But the reason of this video is that there were some other changes that were in that patch that weren't in the patch notes. Breach was buffed even more than we expected, Miska.
Yes, of course, Breach the Swede getting some even more, well, just, I guess, pretty strong buffs as well. Not just buffs, but also quality of life changes, which for Breach is a huge deal. For some other characters, you know, maybe it's not as needed, but Breach is one of those characters that's always been the whole, oh, he's too hard to learn or play, and that's why people don't want to pick him up, even though he is really strong. So now the devs have kind of gone, all right, well, let's try these things out. And what they've done that's not been in the patch notes, other than all the other Breach changes we've seen and also saw in the patch notes, we have a 20% faster charge rate for the Faultline, and the Faultline as well as the ultimate both start a little bit further ahead of Breach. So I think it said about 8 meters or so, but it's a little bit hard to say exactly. Point is that since they start a little bit ahead of him, his allies won't really walk into it as much, and I think that's really good, because really, when are you faultlining someone that's like, you know, 7 meters ahead of you? It just doesn't really happen. When you're faultlining, it's usually someone that's in a spot, maybe around a corner that you're about to push, that sort of thing. So good stuff, and I think especially with the ultimate not hitting your teammates, that's a big deal.
And this actually came through from Raikou on Twitter, who answered the question, are these changes intentional? And he says that these changes are intended, but never made it to the patch notes. The intended changes are as followed. We will try to make sure we will add this to the notes. And then he goes over the changes that we just mentioned. Sorry again, must have slipped through the cracks with all of the changes he also put. And a couple of people have pointed out that they have tried to faultline people that are within the 7 meter radius, I suppose, of them. So they do actually miss it. But I do think that this is a change that actually a lot of Breach players will enjoy. But it's that typical thing that we've seen from Riot devs at this point, where it's just a lot of changes to one agent at once, and that kind of worries me a little bit, considering what they did to Sage, for example.
Yes, lots of interesting balance changes and quality of life tweaks, and just general balance philosophy that Riot have been talking about and putting into action recently. And another character, or characters actually, that are getting some of those changes, and some more that were also not mentioned in the patch notes, are Killjoy and Cypher. So, you know, your sort of charges of your abilities, you can pick them up and you can save them for next round. If you're Cypher and, you know, they rushed B, but you were on A that round and you've just put out all your stuff, you're probably picking that stuff up very quickly just to make sure that you have it for next round and save some money. That will not be a thing anymore. You won't be able to sort of save your charges like that. If you bought them that round and you deploy them, you can't pick them back up and save them. That's it. So if you bought them and you've used them, you're not going to be able to save them for next round. That goes for Cypher and Killjoy stuff. And all in all, I think it makes sense for some deployables, because that's a pretty good way to save a lot of money over time. And especially with those characters that bank so much on characters coming to where they've set things up, to be rewarded in a way for keeping their stuff when the characters don't show up there just means that it's a lot safer to play those characters in a lot of situations. So interesting to see them really underline that whole sort of Sentinel thing and really put them into their class and make them dedicate to their decisions.
I think this is just a really big nerf to Cypher players specifically, because this just means that their economy is constantly going to be hit. And really, at this point, with all of the changes from patch 1.11, which we'll highlight later in the video in case you're not quite sure everything that's in here, it makes me think that in ranked, at least, we're just going to see teams that don't want to play Killjoy or Cypher because they're not going to be as strong, and in some cases, they're just not going to be as fun because of the way that their utility has been brought down. So I'm not specifically against the changes themselves, but I am a bit worried with the Breach changes too, seeing multiple changes hitting at once. We saw it with Sage, and she was hit pretty hard to the point that we're really not seeing her anymore. It would suck if a whole range of heroes of Killjoy, Cypher, and Sage were all considered pretty much unplayable by the ranked community, at least. That's the area that's going to be pretty disappointed if that comes to bear fruit.
Yeah, I think it's still important to really differentiate unrated, ranked, high-level ranked, and esports though, because if you think about Sage, we've heard a little bit sort of mixed things there from esports side and from higher levels of ranked versus what Max told us in our latest interview with Sage Pickery still being really good, according to them, right? So it's a little bit difficult to know exactly where those things should be at and to have that conversation, because someone that's playing unrated might not be, making use of their potential as much. So yeah, we'll see how this affects every level of play across the board, because it definitely will. And Breach is a character that already is very different in different ranks and different situations. When you're playing some Spike Rush or unrated, you're probably not looking to play Breach and just chill for a bit. But if you're in a very high level ranked team and people are just generally very coordinated and good, then you can make much better use of a character like that. So it's gonna be interesting to see. And I think you're right. This patch is gonna swing some characters quite heavily, and we think we know who those are. Well, we'll get to, see in a few weeks from now when things either spin out of control or don't. So, yeah. Skye is actually in competitive. I've been checking out some, highly ranked players' streams, and all of them want to be playing Skye, of course, because a new content, new character. And, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because there's going to be a lot of confused players that might not really even remember what her kit is like. Maybe they saw it in a couple trailers or in a video of ours here and there, but that was like 2-3 weeks ago at this point. So it's going to be an interesting one.
So if you are one of those players that plays Killjoy and Cypher and you're maybe looking for a new main, maybe look no further than Skye, as she will be in the game at the moment. What I do know is that she was meant to come in on November 9th for the First Strike stuff. That's actually been moved up a couple of weeks because she's come out a little bit later, right? So she's not going to be in those qualifiers, but she will be in the week after. So a little bit more time for the teams to adjust with her. But you also have the changes to the flashes, for example, not only to Breach, but to Phoenix and Skye, where it will last a little bit longer, the flashes, but they will fade out much quicker. We went over this in the last video. I'm just sort of going through some of the other changes. Cypher's utility disables when he dies. Killjoy's utility can disable when she goes out of range. There's some really nice UI elements that show you how this works, which I'm quite happy about, so you will be able to play around that. It's not like you're going to rotate away and be unsure whether your kit is working or not. But a utility for a turret alarm bot, you can pick it up a lot faster. A nano swarm does a little bit more damage. And yeah, there's a lot of other changes to do with the economy, quality of life, left-handed view model. Icebox is going into competitive too. And I'm just surprised that so much is hitting in this patch after the start of Act 3. A lot of stuff has been changed right before some pretty important esports stuff too. It's pretty ridiculous when you look at it, the amount of stuff that's in here.
Well, Breach is someone that she's been compared to quite a bit, right? And they want to make sure that the initiators, as Max called them, when in reality they're basically just referring to Skye and Breach, are kind of in line so you can pick both, and they do kind of compete with each other. In a way, I feel like it might result in both being played if Breach ends up being really good. Because, they have super strong kit. They have so many flashes, right? Imagine having 6 flashes on your team just like that, right? Like you're playing Counter-Strike and you want to get some flashbangs for your team, but there's only 2 characters in the game, like 2 players on your team that can have them. Of course, you would go full flashbangs on those guys, right? Flashbangs are great. And in this case, you do have 2 characters that have 6 a total between the 2. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting for the higher ranked players and the esports sort of level of play, but I don't really feel like it's going to be a problem at mid ranks. That's my initial impression or prediction, but hey, we'll see. I'll probably hop into competitive either later today or tomorrow to check that out.
It was a bit of I've never seen anything really like it, Misko. I don't know if it's happened in Overwatch before, where we've had a patch almost go out, and then everybody's like, no, don't put it out now, please. There's a tournament happening. And they're like, okay, we'll put it out.
Dota. It's happened in Dota. For a while, it happened a couple of times in Dota, and there were some, just clips that kind of blew up from that. But it's not really, a common thing. I've seen it happen in some games here and there, but yeah, Dota's the one that comes to mind for me. But it is funny when it happens, right? Because it's the sort of thing that the devs talk about, that they want to keep in mind, that they do try to keep in mind, but then there's tournaments going on in a bunch of different regions at once or in another time zone, and all of a sudden you're not really sure when things are happening, and they might just go with their normal patch schedule, and all of a sudden things collide. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that going forward. But League has obviously found a way to deal with these things for the most part, with different clients and different setups, and competitive setups and PBE, like all this stuff that we don't really have yet for Valorant. So I think once all that infrastructure is in place, we won't really have to deal with it anymore. But for now, expect things to be a little bit rocky for, I guess, the next few months, because in reality, things aren't really going to change too much, right? We have November now, and then we go into December where people go on break for the holiday. And, well, in terms of getting things done at Riot, that's probably going to change quite a bit. And I don't imagine we're going to get a test client or a bunch of new setup and infrastructure before that break. So it'll be interesting to see.
No, they said 2021, didn't they, for that? So that's kind of expected. I suppose COVID doesn't really help either, but we've mentioned First Strike a few times through this video. It's an important week for that too, with the closed qualifiers of North America First Strike. It is the first of two, so there are other opportunities for these teams to qualify for the bigger event in December. But we do have the groups. Don't know the lineup of games just yet, but we can work them out. They start tomorrow. I'm involved in them again, which is super exciting. So hope to see some of you guys over there cheering the teams on. But teams like Cloud9, Gen.G, Team Envy, TSM have all done really well, and I'm excited to see more of them. Sentinels seem to be lacking a little bit because they might want to save some strategies, for example. But there's going to be some pretty interesting upsets, certainly, in these groups. And like I said, out of these 16 teams, 4 of which will go to the grand finals. Another 4 will go to the other qualifiers that are happening later this month, in case you weren't sure. But you can find all of the details in the description if you want to check up on that kind of thing. I would like to do more content on the esports scene, seeing as how involved I am in it, but I'm not specifically sure how we go about that. If you guys have any ideas, do let us know in the comments below. And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Quite interesting changes in here. I am interested to hear what you guys say in the comments below. And thank you for helping us hit 350,000 subscribers. We blew over that milestone thanks to your help. So,
can we hit 1 million before next video? Subscribe now.
Probably at this, if there's a skin video at least. Probably.
Video, yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Bye bye.